Good afternoon and welcome to this episode of One-on-One Sports. I'm Andrew Vandellis.
And I'm Matt Holzapfel. We have a lot of exciting news to cover, so let's jump right into the three strikes.
The Association of Tennis Professionals debuted a new set of trial rules earlier this month for the next-gen ATP Finals in Milan. These new rules, which include a shot clock, shorter warm-ups, and a no-let rule, are all thought to encourage a more TV-friendly version of tennis. Matt, do you think these rules should be implemented for future tournaments?
I think we should take some of them, but not all. So let's break it down. There are 8 new rules that they debuted in this next-gen tournament in Milan, which, by the way, was a fantastic idea because you get to debut all these young, fresh talent in a tournament where there's no veterans, so they're all going against each other.
What a better way to try
Anyway, yes. So the first rule is the sets are now first to 4 instead of 6, and it's best of 5 sets as usual. I don't like this rule, and here's why. Players are when they practice for endurance and stamina to play first to 6 game sets. So that's what the pros have been practicing since they were basically in college playing tennis. So I think that when you change something like that, it has to change their practice regimen, and they're just something that we can't implement just out of nowhere. So I think that one's a no. And then there's no ad scoring. So that one's really unique because instead of ads, we have someone choose their side and just serve next point wins when it's set to deuce. I also don't like that one because that changes the pace of play in terms of how these people are preparing for the end of sets.
Well, if you think about it, though, I don't see it having a really negative effect on how the game's played. So I say go for it. If it works, why not? I mean, we see the same thing in baseball, thinking about in extra innings, putting someone on second base to start that. If it advances the play of the game, makes it easier to watch, per se, for lack of a better word, then why not, especially if it's going to be more friendly?
Exactly, and one of the biggest complaints about tennis worldwide is that it's kind of boring and slow, which is understandable, but some of these I think will make a good change, and I would love to see them implemented. For example, 1 medical timeout per player per match. We're just limiting the number of stoppages, 25-second shot clock between points like we've seen in baseball. And in the minor leagues, they tried that out, like trying this out in the next-gen final. So I love that rule. But I also love how free movement for the crowd except behind the baseline. So especially in America, fans are so used to being able to move around and being antsy during matches and during games, like especially baseball. You go for the experience, you walk around. But in tennis, you're expected to sit down and just be quiet during the points.
Your full attention is on that, and if there's anything to just keep that attention onto the game, it's definitely better.
And I think that change could definitely make it more appealing to the American audience as well as the worldwide audience on television. And so I think that's one of the changes we should see in the future. When Gordon Hayward went down, many counted out the Boston Celtics as championship contenders this season. However, since their 0-2 start, they have gone 18-2, including an impressive 16-game winning streak. Andrew, are the Celtics contenders or pretenders?
They're absolute contenders. Kyrie is averaging 22.8 points per game, proving he's got what it takes to be the leader, the guy on a team. And while many feared for Gordon Hayward and the Celtics after he went down, we see people like Marcus Morris and Al Horford, who's leading some of the stats in the teams, and Marcus Smart. And surprisingly, the Celtics bench hasn't been as bad as some people thought it would with Hayward going down. And I'm not saying that they're going to take down LeBron and the Cavs easily, but they're definitely going to be right on their heels because everyone expects LeBron to bring the Cavs to the playoffs again. And you have young stars like Giannis Antetokounmpo and the surprising New York Knicks. But the Celtics are right up there in the mix, if not the top dog right now in the East.
It is absolutely blasphemous. So this is even a question. And because we're in the age of Cavs-Warriors finals every year is the only reason we're talking about this, right? The Celtics have so much potential and talent, even without Hayward. You mentioned Kyrie leading them in points, Horford in rebounds, Smart in assists. So they're spreading the ball. There's lots of players on that team who are getting things done. You look at young players, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart. Everyone's contributing down to the last player on their bench. Look at role players, Marcus Morris, Aaron Baines, Semi Ojeleye. This is a good team.
And many were fearing that with Isaiah Thomas being gone before the Kyrie trade, where was the Celtics team going to go? Are they able to build new stars? And one thing Kyrie Irving, I'm very surprised that he's doing, he's being selfless with the ball. He's allowing for new stars to be built, as you mentioned. Jaylen Brown has had a very surprising year so far. Jason Tatum on pace to be one of the contenders for Rookie of the Year. And it's very early, but if you have to make a lock on anything, number one, LeBron's going to make the playoffs. The Warriors are going to make the finals, and the Celtics are not going to be too far behind.
Absolutely.
Derrick Rose has left his team again by taking time away from the Cleveland Cavaliers to weigh his basketball future. Rose has faced a rocky past in the past 6 years, falling from MVP to backup point guard. Matt, is this the end of Derrick Rose in the NBA?
I don't think so, but it probably should be. When you look at his stats, he hasn't averaged less than 15 points a game his whole career. Obviously, you look at the MVP season where he averaged 25. That's an outlier, but he stayed between 15 and 20, so his stats aren't dipping despite the missing games. He's never played a full season. But you mentioned he was the MVP, the youngest ever NBA MVP we've ever had. He still has talent. He was producing for the Knicks last year, somewhat producing for the Cavs this year. He averaged 18 points a game last year, obviously, albeit on a poor Knicks team where there wasn't much offense
And if
besides him
anywhere
and
you thought
Porzingis.
he would have more excelled in the Cavs system, especially LeBron being kind of like a fountain of youth for players to return to. But I just think he's had his time, and he's one of those players who we see in sports that just is plagued with injury. If you look at football, Dennis Pitta for the Baltimore Ravens, very promising and still young, but that hip injury just kept lingering. And even if you go as far to say WWE, Kevin Nash had quadricep issues, so he definitely couldn't hang with the rest of the athletes. And I definitely think it's time for him to hang it up, but it's nothing to be
I
ashamed
think
of.
it's sad
for
more
Derrick
than
Rose.
anything. He
Exactly.
has 25 separate injuries in his 9 seasons, cost him at least one game. That's not even counting rest. So an ACL in 2012, a meniscus in 2015. So he's missed entire seasons because of these knee injuries. And when you're a basketball player, knees are something you're so important. Relying on
Especially
them.
at a point guard position, too, when you're the floor general on that court. How are you going to expect to do that if your knees aren't at
Exactly.
100%?
It comes down to, can he trust his knees anymore? I really don't think he can. All right, don't go anywhere, as it's time for our NBA experts to break down the surprising teams in the league.